content in it. It's a good life, you know. I'm not really that successful, but I'm fairly successful in business. Like we're not in want, and you know, I'm married to a pretty awesome woman, and life is good. But last summer I hired a young man, and he was with me for not even very long, about 5 days, and it was just in spending time with a youth that God started to. Ooh. That was anointed. No, that was just microphone. No, but it was in that time that God started to just breathe and just stir up the coals a little bit, just a little bit, you know, to spark some interest again. And I said, man, I really care about the well-being of this kid. And then I went to Dawn, and I'm just grateful that she had the humility to kind of. I said, you know, can I help out? Can I just be a guy in the back of the room? And she just kind of. Just said, run, you know? And I'm just grateful, like it's truly a testimony to God's work in this church that, you know, our leadership in Dan and Matt and Peter, and then our leadership in the board, and then even in Dawn, and like as that filters down, that there's no sense of ego, that nobody's like, no, you can't do that because that's legally my description, and it might, they said, no, man, if you go, you know, go for it, run for it, and that's a testimony to God's goodness and to their integrity as well. I don't, you know what I'm saying. Anyway, so that's kind of how I came back to wanting to do this again, and it's been ridiculous that as God stirred up the coals, He's breathed on the coals, and it's what was dying embers is burning again. Another sip of water. So Dawn had me start on the very first night with my testimony, and I said, "Oh crap." I said, they didn't know. She didn't know what she was asking, whatever. But I'm not going to go into that. If you want to hear it, you can buy me a cup of coffee, and I will gladly share it with you. We went to the Change Conference, and it was there that God kind of flipped a switch in me and really blew on those coals. And just one small sentence in worship, I was worshiping, and I just felt the Spirit of the Lord speak to me and just say, I'm not done. And I'm not done with you, and I'm not done. And it wasn't even, he didn't say it 3 times. I just had to say it 3 times because I don't know. Maybe I heard it from the Father. No, I'm kidding. But he said it once, and it was one small just nugget, and it was, and it's exploded. Anyway, so we started there. Then we talked about temptation. We had a night on temptation. We talked about making a precision. Making a precision is similar to in baseball. I use a lot of sports metaphors because I'm a manly man. But in baseball, you're successful if before the pitch is made, you survey the situation and you know, when this ball comes to me, I know exactly what I'm going to do with it. So if there's a man on first and one out and I'm playing short, I get a ball, I'm going to second, he's going to first, double play right out of the inning. You know what I mean? You know it. Well, that's what you do with temptation. You don't wait until you're, sweaty in the back of the car to know where the line is. You make a decision before you get there so that, it's a lot easier to make it before. Anyway, no. And then we had a night called What is Repentance? And we discussed how repenting is not just saying I'm sorry, but repenting is putting your sin to death. And it's turning from it. It's not just saying I'm sorry then continuing, because that's not true repentance. That's just shame. Then we had a night called You're Not, I Am. Ooh, and that was a good one. In my mind, it was a good one. See, but I don't really know if because I get talking, I really don't, sometimes I feel like I leave the youth behind me a little bit, and it's kind of rude, but I just get a little self-serving. But I hope they heard it. And I think they did, because they've echoed it back pretty good. But it was really about humbleness, and it was about, I'll get into it a little bit when we get into the sermon for tonight, but it was about the difference between self-worth and self-esteem. I'll get into that later. I want to go on it right now, but I got to pull in the reins, because this is an introduction. I could tee off on any one of these and just preach it, but I decided I'm not going to. Well, I've been told I'm not allowed to. Then we started getting a bit more creative. Then we had a sermon called High Five the Withered Hand. And it sounds weird, but it's there's a miracle where Christ heals a man with a withered hand in the temple. And what Christ goes up to him and says is, hold out your hand. It's on the Sabbath too, so he's not even supposed to do any healing. according to religious people, but he's Jesus and he makes the rules, so he says, whatever, I'm going to do it anyway. But he goes up to the guy and he says, hold out your hand. And I kind of saw it as I read the story. I saw it in my mind that he had two hands behind his back. And when Christ said, hold out your hand, the man had a choice. And he could have held out his good hand, his healthy hand, and he wouldn't have received healing. He would have walked away the same. But because he chose to hold out his weakness, then Christ was free to heal him. And sometimes you need to be transparent for Christ to do a work in you. If you're hiding and you're only holding out your strengths, you're not allowing God to do a work. Oh, sorry, I don't want to preach it again, but it's a dang good one. Because the big point on that one too, and this is like the left hook of the sermon, was the fact that in Deuteronomy, he was disqualified from being a member of the royal priesthood, or he couldn't be a priest because he had a defect. But by him holding out his weakness, Christ healed him and declared that he is now holy enough to serve him as a priest. Like, do you see the behind that? There's just some awesomeness there that just rocks my socks a little bit. Then, I might tee off on this one a little bit too, because it's a good one. We had Valentine's Day, we had one called, What is Love? Baby, don't hurt me. Don't hurt me no more. And then the subtitle is, What is Love? More than a feeling. And then the guitar hero. But it was the main focus of it. When they echoed it back, they said you were really nice to the girls and you yelled at the boys, which I tend to do because I expect boys to be men, I guess. I expect if you're going to be a boy, you can be a boy. If you're going to be a man, you can be a man. But don't be a boy who can shave. Yeah, that's not even my line, but it's a good line because it's I just had a birthday this week. I'm not that old, but you see guys my age and guys I went to school with and friends who are still stuck in that boyhood, and it's never accepting responsibility, always pushing off, never really deciding where they're going or what they're doing, and still they want to take a wife, but they don't really want to take a wife, they just want to abuse women. And so we preached against that. I was kind of preaching against my buddies, I suppose, in some way, but the kids didn't know. And then we talked to girls also about guarding their heart. And it's not always about, because a lot of youth sermons, they'll go on, maintain your purity, don't have sex, don't have sex, don't have sex. Yes, okay, I'm not saying have sex. Don't have sex, I agree. But beyond that, guard your heart. Don't fall in love. Don't awaken love before love should be awakened. That's biblical. It's in Song of Solomon. Don't awaken love, which is the dirty book, Song of Solomon. You're not allowed to go there until you're married. I'm kidding. It's all good. It's really the word of God, so it's allowed. But don't awaken love was the big thing. And I really want to tee off on it. Okay, I'm going to really quick. But I couldn't do it without just doing it. Young women, it was, the point of it was that you are favored and you are God's daughter. And don't give yourself over to any boy simply for the sake that he gives you attention. Because attention doesn't cost anything. Attention is free. It's no investment for him to give you attention. For him to invest in you is to give you respect. And if he's not willing to give you respect, he's not worthy of you. And then I yelled at the boys and said, you got to earn the right to a girl's heart. And until you're willing to man up and get a job, you don't borrow your mom's minivan to take a girl out. You go buy a van, well, not a van. Don't buy a van. That just sounds creepy. Get a moped and take a girl out. You don't borrow $20 from dad to take a girl on a date. You go earn $20. And that way you're showing her that you love her by the fact that you worked probably a crappy job because you were unqualified at this point to get a good one. But you're showing love before the date. You're showing love in the fact that I've worked to take you out. It's not, you know what I mean? Whatever. Sorry, I'm teeing off on that. I gotta stop. Then we had another night called Who is Jesus? We examined the historical truths about Jesus. We really examined faith. How some people say, I don't know how you can have faith in Jesus. We examined history from that standpoint and saying, you have faith even by accepting history. Because unless you were there and saw, like I never saw Napoleon, I'm having faith that whoever wrote it in my textbook is telling me the truth. So when I examine Jesus, I have to have faith that whoever's saying he existed. But when atheists come to you and say, I don't have faith, well, then you don't believe in Napoleon. Anyway, it was kind of a nerd night, but it was fun. Then we had a sermon called Can God Hate? This was kind of off the cuff sermon, but it ended up turning pretty awesome. Can God hate? And it's 7 things that tick off God. It was on Proverbs 6:16 and 19. 6 things the Lord detests, 6 things the Lord hates, 7 that are detestable to him. I can't remember. I might be able to run them all. Lying eyes. Nope, messed it up. Wasn't lying eyes. Lying tongue, deceitful eyes, feet that are quick to rush into evil. I'll just read it. I won't read it. Read it when you get home.